haven't always been the most positive person when it comes to discussing how people build their cars. As a result of this, I feel like I need to balance out all that hating with a bit of love. So I put together a little list of builds that I think are super tasteful and well done. So without further ado, let's get into the first car that we'll be talking about today. And this Buick Grand National that the Roadster Shop built is like actually insane. It has 1600 horsepower, which is on par with just about any Bugatti you could buy. And all of this like insane performance and crazy technology has been integrated in such a seamless way. Like, the interior looks pretty period correct, but they completely redid everything. And it's like in some weird alternate universe, Buick made the Grand National into something really polished and just insanely fast. And a car that's built in a similar way is the Merkur XR4 Ti that was unveiled at SEMA this year, which is really just a Ford Sierra, but with a funny name for Americans. It's really well done, and it's super extensively modified, but you wouldn't really know it, and it really just looks like a modernized version of a Ford Sierra Cosworth. But it has an EcoBoost engine, and the suspension and everything is completely redone with new Mustang suspension arms and stuff, so it's pretty much the coolest four-cylinder Mustang ever. And the interior is also very, very nice, and it has very cool, like, subtle ties back into, like, 80s and 90s performance cars. And those interior styling cues that really harken back to the 80s and 90s are a very important thing that it shares with the Roadster Shop Grand National I just talked about. And those cars are similar in more than just their interiors. They're both lesser-known 80s performance cars that still aren't super insanely popular as far as, like, high-end builds go. And both of these builds have kind of helped push that boundary forward and have opened people's eyes to how cool these cars are. And also, it's rare to see an 80s Buick or an off-brand Sierra Cosworth get built to such a high level. And speaking of cars that you don't see modified extensively very often, the next car on our list is pretty much the most insane drift car I've really ever seen. And it's this Audi Coupe Quattro. And it's rear-wheel drive. It's got the whole Group B rally wide body kit. And it's got a period correct 5-cylinder that makes something like 700 horsepower. And it was built by Darren McNamara, who is a legend in the Irish drift scene, and he competed in Formula Drift. And the attention to detail in this car is pretty insane for a race car. And it's really cool, again, to see car from the 80s that maybe wasn't necessarily people's first platform that they would think of when it comes to building a high-end drift car, really kind of receiving a little bit of love. And I know that this is one of those crazy custom one-off things, and nobody's really ever going to do this in the future, but it's still cool to see a Group B inspired drift car. Just like it's cool to see 80s sports cars that are built by like high-level shops. And it's cool to see that these like 80s cars and styling cues are really making a comeback. And it's also kind of cool to see people just doing insane things with drift cars as far as body kits and liveries go. And another car that incorporates a lot of like different and unique styling cues into one tasteful package is this Toyota GT86. And I've been following this build for probably close to 2 years now on Instagram. It's interesting to see how it went from just wheels and a wide body kit to now it's almost completely tube chassis. It's got a crazy cantilever air suspension setup. It's got an LS, which, okay, I know, you know, the typical, oh, it's LS swap cliche is there. But this LS is a whole lot cooler because it's got a custom 8-into-1 header and the car sounds absolutely insane. Combining the American engine and the very American style fabrication that this car has with some really cool like Japanese styling elements in the body kit and the wheels, which are made by Work, which is a Japanese company. This is very similar to that Group D Audi because it combines very dissimilar things. Like that Group D Audi combined drifting and like European rally culture. And this combines muscle cars, a little bit of like DTM race car styling and like the interior and the engine bay. And then some really cool Japanese styling cues on the exterior. And all those different styling cues being compacted into one car basically in essence makes this the automotive equivalent of the Tour d'Italy that you could order at Olive Garden, except this won't give you violent food poisoning. And it combines all these kind of dissimilar styling cues into a really well put together package. And I think it indicates a little bit of a change in the car community where people aren't really just sticking to their one niche and their cars are kind of starting to become almost a witch's brew of sorts as far as styling cues and different stuff goes that are from different car cultures. And I guess that could be a bad thing. Like, I'm sure there are plenty of really ugly cars that combine the wrong styling elements, but the ones that I've seen here do it really well and do it really tastefully. And it's also cool, like all these cars except for the 86. But actually, wait, no, I take that back. Even the 86 is like somewhat overlooked as far as like super high quality builds go. And I mean, 80s Buicks and Mercers that are Riddler quality cars aren't exactly growing on trees. So that's why these kind of oddball builds, which honestly are really interesting and they're really kind of pushing the car hobby forward in general, because they're almost forcing people to kind of go off the beaten path, and they're opening a lot of people's eyes to different platforms and how cool a Mercer or a Grand National can be. And if you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate it if you could consider liking and subscribing, and tune into the next one.